Hello and welcome to the hashtag Here to Hear Keeping It 100 podcast. My name is Damon Naylor and I'll be serving as the host. I am the NAFCM media guru and I'm joined by my co-host, DG Mon, the president of NAFCM. Hey, DG, what's going on?
Hey, Damon, I don't know how you get these great guests, but I am so excited to begin this conversation with Bryan in these turbulent
Right,
times. We
right.
need to talk about what we need to talk about. Let's keep it 100, as you say.
Definitely. We will keep it 100. And as DG has mentioned, today we have an amazing guest with us, Bryan Hanson out of Blacksburg, Virginia. Bryan is an Ombuds practitioner at Virginia Tech's grad school. And we're going to not delay, but we're going to bring in Bryan to hang out with us tonight. We've been so excited and anticipating this conversation. So let's bring him in. Hello, Bryan, and welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful today, Damon. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Like I've told the guests, the audience, we have been looking forward to this conversation. We've given just some brief biographical information on you. At this time, if you want to share anything else with the audience, you can do so.
Well, yeah, I just want to, really share my appreciation to be part of this conversation today and really hopefully give some thoughts to, think how can we be present, empathetic, and really there for folks when they need our services. And so, looking forward to talking with y'all.
Okay, awesome, awesome, man. Well, we're going to dive into it, and basically, we're looking at the life of a conflict navigator. And I want to start off with the question of what are some ways we can listen with intention? It's so much going on right now. I think listening is critical, but what are some ways or some tips you can give us whereas we're listening with intention?
Yeah, I mean that is a hard question to kind of put in this world, when we have so many external stressors out there right now. And even in the best of times, it can be really hard to get past, what we've got on our mind and what we're thinking through to really show up for folks and give that presence. But the number one thing that I say always, if you want to be truly a good listener, is you have to feel like you can be fully present and that you can really put that focus out there on the person that you're trying to give that space to. And so, it really starts with thinking about, where am I at? Is this the right time? Am I able to really give that focus and to be present? Is it the right place? Is the environment right? Is this going to be a place where I can really stay present, not have the distractions that might keep me from truly hearing, what somebody's trying to share for me. So right there, that's what I think is really important, is to be present and, not preoccupied with, what you think is important in this conversation or what you think needs to happen out of this conversation, but really given that space so that the individual that's counting on you to hear what they're seeing or what they're going through, that they feel truly heard. And, part of that also is to think, how can we show that we hear that, you know, what the message is or what somebody else is going through? How can we provide empathy so that we can create that psychological safety so folks can, maybe go a little deeper beyond that surface level of, just kind of getting out there what's on their mind at the moment.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you were saying basically just giving them that space, making sure you're in the space with them and focusing in on what they're saying. I know sometimes people say that some people I guess really don't listen, but they just be quiet while they're thinking about what they're gonna say. But go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that internal clutter that keeps us truly from hearing
Right.
in so many critical conversations where we're thinking about, well, what's our position? Or, how would we handle this situation?
Yes.
Or, what am I going to say next? So this person really knows why I was the right person to come talk to. But, our minds are amazing. If we truly do try to shut that clutter down and really give that focus, keep that spotlight on the other individual so you're soaking in what they're saying, all those other things that we want to do
Yes.
will come to mind quite quickly because we truly heard where they're at.
Right.
And,
Right. Right.
we'll be able to identify how they're feeling so we can empathize with them
Yes.
effectively. And we'll be
Yes.
able to kind of think of those important questions that, might fill in the gaps of what we didn't hear. And
Right.
so, getting rid of that internal clutter is truly important. Because if you don't do that, you're probably going to run into, the same message over and over again. And that's
Right.
what I
Right.
kind of use as a cue. Maybe I'm not listening so well because we all struggle with that at times.
Yes. Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Of
So when I
course.
start hearing the same thing over and over again, that's when I start to think, am I truly given the due attention that this conversation needs? Because this
Right.
person obviously isn't feeling heard if they're
Right.
sharing the same message over.
But right, right, right. That's good. That's good. I know with the program that we teach when we share with our parents, one of the things we say, is just kind of nodding your head in agreement, letting the person know, hey, I'm following along. And a very powerful tool we use a lot of times, we say summarizing the statements, after the person finishes being able to just summarize what was stated, letting them know, okay, I heard you. And typically, when people feel as though they're being heard, as I know they'll share more and more and more. You find yourself saying, hey, TMI, man, TMI.
Mhm.
But you just have to create that space, like you're saying, just being honed in and not allowing making a person feel as though they're just repeating the stuff and not being heard once again. Okay, good deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have this little model or this acronym that I like to use.
Okay,
I call it fears because often when you're in
okay,
conflict situation, it's filled with
right,
fear. So I use this model to help people think, how can they be a good listener in these situations? And, it starts with the focus,
okay,
empathy, asking those good questions like, can you tell me more? Or,
right,
what am I hearing here? And then going to the reflective listening or kind of some kind of reflecting back what you're hearing. And then also, ending with that great summary, which allows you
good,
to
good.
integrate all these things.
Right. Love it. Love the acronym. Love the acronym. And I love acronyms. So, okay. Thanks for sharing that wonderful tip, man. So,
Yeah.
second question is, how do we find balance between our desire to fix situations and our desire to empower others to transform their own situations? Sometimes we always want to be the fixers, but how do we strike that balance where we're empowering others so they can take care of their own situations?
And that is a challenge, and I love that question. And in my role as an ombuds, and we're also as a mediator, people come often because they feel you can fix their situation.
Right.
But one of the biggest challenges with that is if you're the one coming up with the options and sharing those solutions, it's really hard for those people to really carry that through in a meaningful way.
Right.
So that's where I love that aspect of the question, like, how can we avoid fixing those situations for someone else so that they feel empowered so that they can kind of transform that situation. And what it really takes is to really check yourself and once again to be focused on what your role is in this conversation. And if somebody's coming to you because, they need to talk through a situation and they're looking to really figure this out, check your own urge to fix that and think, whose responsibility is it to solve this? And, if it's not your responsibility, then sit back. And, instead of trying to offer those solutions immediately, try to go to what are some good questions that I can ask? Like, what do you think would help in this situation? In this, have you experienced a situation like this before? If so, how did you approach that moment? And what worked in similar situations? And those types of questions, can really help us, one, show that we care. And so we're not just avoiding the problem, but really trying to help empower them. And if we have some opportunity to maybe try to validate, their strengths to help with that empowerment. So if we can recognize, maybe related to, what's worked in the past to solve situations like this. Give that credit, so you've navigated through something like this before. That's wonderful. What gave you the confidence to do that then? And, really, be comfortable with those moments of uncertainty, which is another thing that we tend to kind of jump in and try to fix those situations when we feel uncomfortable. And just kind of, really focus on being present so that, we can be mindful of that urge and sit back and really see what can we do to help these folks be part of that solution.
Great, great, great. So basically putting the onus on them and giving them those prompting questions to help them, work through it. And like you say, encourage them, let them know, hey, you've succeeded before in this area. You've done some things, you made some progress. So hey, you could fix this one as well. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask my co-host DG if he wants to ask you anything, Bryan.
I do, because I am a simple person, and you talked about being focused, you talked about internal clutter. I'd like for you to go a step back. How would you recommend someone begins to recognize what is clutter, and how can I remove it so I can be focused? And what isn't clutter, I need to keep it so I have a better way of appreciating what this person is telling me. What's some steps you practice, Bryan, that you could give as tips for people listening in?
Well, steps that I practice in this situation are, one, reflecting on experiences that I had. So, that I can, try to consistently be mindful and improve my ability to maintain that space. Really check in with myself. What is going on? Do I feel mentally ready? Do I have any other things on my mind that might keep me from giving the focus to the person that I'm engaged in a conversation with at that time? So, even, outside of the immediate solution, we also have that clutter in our head. Like, are we hungry? Are we tired? Do we have other external stressors that we're thinking about? So really trying to do that type of reflection ahead of time. And I find that's what can help me keep that spotlight on the person. So, that's something that, when I'm trying to help folks, improve their listening skills, I like to think of, if you're on an interview stage or, an interview like this, where is that spotlight focused? Can we always make sure that we're keeping that spotlight focused on the other individual? So we're tuned in and really trying to listen to what are they conveying to us at this moment? How are they feeling about this situation? And so if we can really lock into those pieces, like I said, once we do have that space to talk, where we can, do some reflective listening, do some summarizing, we're able to really show, hey, we hear you, or I hear you, and what can we do to try to find a solution for this situation?
And do you also practice that because you have tweens, and tweens can be a curious age group? How do you practice that in home? Because it's not just I do it at work, you do it all the time. So how do you do that when it is with someone you care deeply about, and yet you want to be able to really do that focus as you described?
Well, I will be honest with you, DG. That is a lot more difficult to do at home than it is, to do that at work. And, people say that all the time. I've been working with conflict for about 20 years now. So people are always like, wow, you must have a wonderful home life and everything always works out for you. And I will be honest and say it's much easier to put myself in that role in these intentional settings than it is to employ that on a regular basis at home. So you have to give yourself grace. And one of the nice things that being able to work in this arena and have studied this for so many years is I feel I can get into that right headspace becomes obvious that, okay, I'm not listening right now, or I am too preoccupied with what I want to happen in this situation that I'm not even open up the conversation for someone else to, come at me with what they want in this situation. And so I will be honest about that with my family and recognize, okay, I'm not hearing you right now. I'm not listening. Can we take a step back? And I think that's for people in all situations. We're not always going to get this right. So if somebody listens to this podcast and they say, "Okay, I got that. It makes sense." You're not going to get it right every time. So you have to be able to give yourself grace, but try to at least be conscious and look for those red flags like I was saying earlier. Like if you're hearing the same thing over and over again, or you're seeing somebody else get emotionally triggered, then take a step back, look for those mental models. Okay, here's a chance to show some empathy. So I can try to create some psychological safety and de-escalate the situation. Or, here's a chance for me to really tune in and listen because it seems like maybe this person's not feeling like they're being heard. So it takes a lot of practice, but also it takes some grace.
Great, great. So I know, look, you've mentioned the word empathy several times, and I know with what I do, we harp on that throughout our parenting programs. But I guess thinking of it, how would you define it? And then, how does it help others, that empathy help others to open up and identify how they can move forward in their situations?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would simply define it just as, empathy is that opportunity to recognize, how somebody else is feeling in this situation, or recognizing those emotions that are present in the conversations that are taking place. And, where some people get caught up in that is they feel like, well, we need to, justify those emotions, or we need to validate somebody. And I don't necessarily think you need to go that far. But if you can at least acknowledge, hey, I can hear this situation is hard for you. Wow, I can feel the tension as you share with me, and how frustrating this might be for you. You're not justifying or validating it, but you're providing that space and that foundation to help people feel heard and also feel safe so that they can open up and really go deeper in their conversation and maybe think, now, I can have that emotion acknowledged. Maybe I can move forward. Because I find if we don't do that and people sit in those emotions and don't feel heard, that just creates a defensive stance, or it really shuts them down, or does not allow them to really get past those initial feelings about the situation so that they can think about what might be a way to get past and have a solution for this situation.
Great, man. Great. Good stuff, Brian. Good stuff. Well, look, we're coming to the close of the podcast. DG, did you have anything else you wanted to ask Brian or say?
No, sir, I got a lot I'm sitting with and need to process, so very grateful.
Right, right, right. Well, Brian, you've been an awesome guest. Is there any last minute remarks that you want to give?
Well, I really, once again, just appreciate this, and that was a quick conversation.
Right.
But thank you
Yeah.
for touching on this, and yeah, go out there and see how you can do to really, sit down and give that focus to somebody so that you can hear where they're coming from. And this is a tough time. Our friends, our family, those that we work with, need to feel like they have folks that can help them work through the various stressors that they might be experiencing.
Right. Like I said, thanks so much, man, for dropping those jewels, giving us those nuggets of wisdom. And I know these things will resonate with our audience. So, as always, we say thank you for keeping it 100. And we appreciate you for being a dynamic guest. And we just hope, the best for you and yours. So, thanks again, Brian.
Absolutely. You take care.